All right. How's everybody doing, by the way?
Still here.
That's a positive. That counts.
We've had a bunch of COVID. The guy sat next to it, Christmas, had tested positive for COVID. So my wife and I have tested, we're negative, but it's all over the place and we're trying to mask and yeah. So other than that, everything is fine.
Yeah.
How about you guys? Just staying healthy?
Yeah. Doing well, staying healthy, taking the necessary precautions. And back at work after being off for a couple of weeks due to winter break. So that was kind of interesting to go back after being away for a few weeks. Actually, a little bit longer than that because of the remote schedule that I have. So
you keep getting a new boss, don't you?
Well, I mean, we got a new president, new-ish. I mean, he's been there a couple of months now, and several new folks surrounding him. But yeah, academia, you get your fair share of turnover, even though it would seem to be one of those things that would be more stable.
Have they picked a new athletic director yet?
Yeah, they hired Michael Alford, who was the president of the Seminole Boosters.
Oh yeah,
He transitioned right into that role. I mean, he has a background in athletics.
yeah, I saw that.
Athletics management and stuff, but it just, I mean, okay, so as if you needed to formalize the relationship between the boosters and the athletics department.
Right.
There you go. So, but we'll see. Hopefully he provides some stability there for the programs for the department. They could certainly use it. And I think David Coburn did what seems like on the outside a very good job of helping to stabilize things, but I don't think he was ever a long-term hire. I'm not even sure if he took the job as director of athletics with anything more than kind of a temporary view on staying, and it really wasn't what he wanted to do, but he did it as a favor maybe to Thrasher more than anything else, but that's just my guess.
Yeah, I kind of had that sense too. I used to live next door.
Now they've just got to change the state law on name, image, likeness.
What?
Now they've just got to change the state law on name, image, likeness.
Yeah.
I mean, they were doing sort of, what you could say was the right thing by actually trying to set up rules. And then the rest of the country, the NCAA said, okay, everybody, you're on your own.
Yeah.
So all the others, almost every other state, they can actually just, the schools work with the people basically funding the athletes now. But Florida, you can't.
Right. And I think is there not a plan to revise the rules governing NIL?
There is a bill that's been filed, but I'm not sure what they're going to do with it yet. So.
Okay. All right. And session begins next Monday, is that right?
Tuesday, officially, but yeah.
Officially Tuesday, right, that's right. Yep. Yeah, that'll lead to a big old increase in traffic and chaos downtown, that's for sure. Well, I'll tell you what, fellas, let's go ahead and just get started. The first topic I had on the agenda, which is not much of a topic because there ain't much happening with it, is the CBA Labor Negotiations. Last I saw, the owners were supposedly, according to anonymous sources, getting together counter proposals or alternatives to their original set of proposals that they had put forward to the players union to pitch it to them by the end of the month. But I don't know if more information has come to light in that regard, or if that really is the latest rumor that's out there. But it doesn't seem like anybody's going to be talking to anybody to any degree before the end of the month, with spring training coming right at the tail end of the next month, at least right. Pitchers and catchers reporting, etc. So, and games by the end of the month too, I believe. So yeah, so that's kind of where that stands. So that's a big old nothing. So with that, how about we get on to something that's a little bit more interesting? I'll go ahead and share my screen here. And we can talk about the Baseball Hall of Fame ballot tracking. This is a link that Chuck sent me earlier today. Of course, I followed this one myself. This is Ryan, I believe it's Ryan Thibodeau, right, Chuck? Is that, oh, I'm sorry, let me finish sharing there. There we go. This is Ryan Thibodeau's site, I believe, right, Chuck?
Yes.
And it's his master spreadsheet that he has been maintaining in some form or fashion with the help of several others, going back as far as 2009. If you can see the bottom of my screen there, those are the tabs in this spreadsheet that he posts and maintains on a regular basis for every balloting period every year out on the online at this link right here. If you can see that, bbhoftracker.com. You can even go back in time and see some of the final results from previous years voting. But this spreadsheet, to me, is an incredible piece of work. I love looking at this thing. I don't tend to start looking at it really until, I don't know, close to maybe almost after Christmas. I mean, a little bit before Christmas, but the ballots were all due, Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, the ballots were due on December 31st, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so now we have, of the 392 total ballots, I think. Yeah, there it is.
Right.
Estimated ballots cast 392. 137 have been made public in some form or fashion. I say 137 because 130 have been identified as associated with a particular writer, blogger, whomever, a journalist who has BBWAA credentials for 10 years minimum and can vote, plus 7 anonymous or unverified ballots that are included in this. And it basically just tracks every person's public ballot, who they voted for, whether there was a change in their voting from last year to this year. The green means that they've added somebody to their ballot, limit of 10 total people who can be put, who are eligible to be voted for on the ballot, 10 slots, let me say that. And the red indicating those who did not get this person's vote this year in comparison to having gotten a vote last year. And all those are aggregated, those totals by person, by individual eligible retired major league player up here. And let me actually do that. And that'll expand the list a little bit there. And then you can see everyone who is included on the ballot this year, all the first timers plus all the holdovers. Now, right now, we know we have a couple of holdovers who are on the ballot for their last time, 4 of them specifically. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling, and Sammy Sosa. And the way things are looking, 2 of the 4 holdovers who are on the ballot for the last time, the 10th year being their last year of eligibility, 2 of them, Mr. Bonds, Mr. Clemens, are looking pretty good right now.
I would say not though. Because my guess is.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. I think they're looking okay. But
okay, right.
Discussion. Here is so far, they have been named, or I'll pick on Bonds, named on 81% of the ballots that have been made public or that are associated, are out there.
Right.
And he needs to be named amongst the rest of the ballots that are now in and are being tabulated. He needs to maintain a roughly 72% success, we'll call it, on those ballots, of appearing on 72% of those remaining ballots in order to pass muster the 75% minimum for election. Clemens is right behind him. He's off the pace, I guess, by 2, if you will, 2 votes total, to have a little bit of a stronger showing than Bonds in order to clear that 75% threshold. The other 2, Schilling and Sosa,
they're done, yeah.
Yeah, they're going backwards. Now, no surprise with Curt Schilling based on what happened with last year's vote and his reaction to it and everything that's happened with him since he fired. He is net 15 votes down from where he was last year among returning voters. So in other words, he's lost a net of 15 votes from those folks who have made their ballots public since last year. So he is going in the wrong way, the wrong direction. And it's a little hard to imagine that he's going to suddenly, rally and get 84% votes on the remaining ballots that have not been made public. And Sosa is, he is completely done. He has no chance of getting in on the writer's ballot.
Yeah, I just think there's too many people who don't make their ballots public are the ones that have that mindset of the integrity of the game. So, everything that happened in the 90s and 80s, forget it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I
It's part of what is hurting baseball.
yes.
Are those people.
And to Jim's point from another direction, as you see more and more ballots made public every year, it seems like the percentages where they're in the green for someone at this point, 81%, 6% north of 75%. As more and more ballots are made public, you see these numbers go down, these percentages go down, because you see more and more ballots with fewer and fewer people checking the names of those individuals, their integrity of the game and so forth, as Jim was talking about. So do they hold serve? Who knows? But
I mean, if I'm running the Hall of Fame, the museum, the Baseball Hall of Fame, I would be calling for a complete overhaul of how the process is done, because you're basically devaluating. You're basically making it so everybody who's under 40 years old is never going to go to that museum, because the players they grew up watching are not going to be.
Yep, there's no one they can relate to or recall fondly.
Yeah.
That's definitely going to be a concern. However, we do have one first timer who's looking pretty good so far, and that's David Ortiz. Of all the first timers, I think his success thus far in the ballot.
That's because he's only rumored to have been
alleged. Yes, alleged. He might have been named. We don't know, but he's doing pretty well so far. He needs to maintain about a 71% success rate on the remaining ballots to be tabulated in order to achieve election in his first year. So we're not seeing anybody who was as dominant as Mariano, that's for sure. But we are seeing some interesting results, and there's some people who seem to be trending in the right direction who aren't going to make it this year, but have maybe a better chance in the next 2 years of gaining even more votes and eventually election. Scott Rowland.
That's how I was looking. Yeah,
he's 8 up in terms of number of people who voted for him this year over last year.
And I wonder if my thinking on the steroid guys reverses with him, where he might actually be on more of the unnamed ballots.
Possibly you could see. I mean, he's on 72.3% of the ballots now. He would need to be on 76.5 in order to be elected. But yeah, if someone is going to continue to do well, gaining net votes and be on those unnamed ballots or those ballots yet to be made public, yeah, he's got a shot at it for sure. Another one who seems to be doing decently well. Let's see, where did he go? There we go. Todd Helton. He's gained 10 since last year net, and that's a pretty good sign. Chances are not good that he'll get in this year, but he's only in his 4th year of eligibility. His chances are looking pretty good in the years to come that he will continue to gain support and may eventually get there. First baseman from Colorado. Boy, I wish Rick were here. He'd go off on that one. That would make him physically ill, I think. And then also another person who's gaining votes, gaining support is Billy Wagner, he makes an interesting case because we know that, relief pitchers, specifically closers, have had some difficulty being recognized for what they did and how they did it by the voting, the writers. And it's proven to be somewhat of a challenge for writers to figure out, okay, who really was a Hall of Fame closer? We've only got a handful of them right now. Is Billy Wagner one who fits in that small handful, that category of all-time great closers?
He's got what, 3 years to pick up 25%?
Yeah, and that's or more.
But yeah,
that's going to be tough. But if he makes a good showing here on the Veterans Committee ballot for his era, he might end up getting the support he needs to get in. You never know. But if he gets in, and I've looked at his numbers and compared his numbers to, Joe Nathan, who there he is over here, their numbers are not hugely different. I think Wagner's numbers are overall superior, but not by a great deal, not by a significant amount. And yet you see Joe Nathan's picking up almost no support. I mean, good chance that he doesn't even make it to next year, that he doesn't even make the 5% minimum to stay on the ballot as a holdover. So that's an interesting discussion to be had between those two. And then there's Jeff Kent, who in his 9th year is got right now 27.7% of the ballots name him as a Hall of Fame candidate. He can't make it this year. Next year is going to be his last year. And so maybe he makes a better showing with the unnamed ballots or the unrevealed ballots. Maybe finishes around low 30s, somewhere in there. He has to pretty much double and then some the number of votes in order to get in on the writer's ballot next year in his 10th year of eligibility. But there are some people who swear up and down that he was a Hall of Famer. I think it's a debatable argument, but there are people who believe very strongly in his candidacy based on his offensive numbers, definitely not based on his glove work.
Isn't it the suspicion though with him that most of that stuff was after like 28 years old and his offense?
Maybe. I mean, I haven't heard him associated with anything.
I haven't either, but I'm just saying it's that era, and once you do that, it's.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of a cloud hanging over him, but of course he also was he was kind of a personality, longer off the media. Didn't get along with Barry Bonds, but then again, that's not saying much.
Right, I was going to say that should never be.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he makes for an interesting case, but I also note, and I just noticed this, but I don't know why I didn't look at this until just now. He actually has lost votes. He's actually lost 3 votes amongst the revealed ballots since last year, which is interesting. I wonder
if that's people shifting to Clemens and Bonds because it's their last year.
It's possible, but it's his second to last. So losing votes this year is not a good sign for next year.
Right, but he wasn't on the verge of getting there, so maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. No, it's yeah. I don't know. That's an interesting possibility. And then one other guy who I think makes an interesting case is only in his 5th year and has picked up a few votes is Andrew Jones. He's not going to make it this year. It's almost impossible that he would make it this year. And in the years to come, it'll be interesting to see how his career is viewed and whether he continues to pick up votes and maybe gets close at the end of his 10-year period of eligibility. So over here on the right, before I forget to do so, there is a total aggregation of how many voters whose ballots are revealed below, how many of them filled out their ballots entirely. In other words, they filled out all 10 slots with someone that they believe should be elected to the Hall of Fame. And the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of them maxed out their ballots. And there are still some people who return blank ballots, or be precise.
And that's where, if I'm the Hall, I would be any of those people that are under 4 people. I would just be, why are they still doing this, or what's their excuse for it?
I struggle with trying to understand why someone continues to be a voting member for the Baseball Hall of Fame as a BBWAA member 10 years plus. Why he continues to return a blank ballot year after year. And I don't know if it's the same 4 people year after year. I don't know. I know that there have been people who have turned in a blank ballot as a protest saying it's ridiculous that we're limited to 10 people total.
You've got to be past that point.
Yeah, and then the next year they vote for 9 people, 7 people, 8 people, whatever. But yeah, I'm with you, Jim. I don't quite understand why someone would continue to do that. I think there are even people who are small hall people. I think you can make a case that there's at least 1 or 2 people on this ballot who are worthy of consideration, are worthy of being voted for. But it depends on what your comfort level is with the whole steroid HGH era of Major League Baseball. So our friend, Mr. Rodriguez, speaking of whom, he's only pulling in about 46%.
He broke up with J-Lo. I think that's going to send him back down.
Yeah, that's going to hurt him. That's going to hurt him with this, no doubt. These voters are sensitive to that sort of thing. He needs to, There's obviously no way he would have to double what he's doing basically right now in order to gain election this year. But it's his first year. It will be interesting to see what happens to his candidacy going forward.
I was gonna say, if it's his first year and he's close to 50, I mean, maybe he'll end up at 45, 42 or something.
I
That's
think he's
not bad though.
It's not bad. I think he's going to end up closer to 40 with these unrevealed.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm expecting it to go down, so but still, that's where were Bonds and Clemens their first years?
That's a good question. Let's see. I don't know if we look, let's see, it would have been 2013 would have been their first year if I do the math right. Ooh, this looks a lot different. I haven't looked at this. I don't know how long. Holy cow.
All right, so about that era, same era, all right, 45, 42.
Yeah, 45. Of course, Bijou and Bagwell eventually made it. Let's see.
Morris was 59.
At that point. Edgar.
Piazza 61.
Yep, Piazza, yep.
Trammell 36.4.
Yep. And
Larry Walker 17.
Yep. And Walker, and of course, Walker made it on the writer's ballot, whereas Trammell and Morris both made it on the veterans ballot. So, yeah, that's interesting. So, yeah, they're sitting kind of in that same range that A-Rod is right now. So, by year 10 for A-Rod, what happens? It shall be to see.
I wonder if Clemens and Bonds fail this year. I wonder if they might just tank him and the others, but if they get him, it's a boost for him. But
right, yeah, it definitely opens the door wider for the likes of an A-Rod if Clemens and Bonds get in this year, Ortiz gets in either this year or next under a little bit of a cloud of suspicion. Not to the obvious same extent that A-Rod, because he popped twice. So
and he's welcomed back with open arms. It's just amazing.
Yeah. And Manny sits here kind of middling 41%, 42% in his 6th year of eligibility. He's net lost a few votes, and I don't think there's much chance of him getting in. He'll make an interesting case when it comes to the Veterans Committee. I'll be curious to see how they view him.
Well, same with, I think Sheffield will be an interesting one with the veterans.
Yep, true. And Sheffield's consistently done a little bit better, but he's only got this year.
Same with Sammy.
Yeah, and Sammy's done and done. And yeah, boy, yeah, that's all going to be interesting. McGuire too, because he'll be eligible for discussion by the veterans. Oh, I don't know if it's next year or the year after that. I can't remember.
I mean, because they were baseball for a couple of years. I mean, that's,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, in the late 90s, absolutely. So, any questions about this or about any of the information?
Matt, I have one item.
Yeah.
I've been using this tracker file, following this tracker 5 or 6 years. And I want to call it the disclosed ballots, which now show, as of today, 130. Normally, the disclosed ballots run around 50%. Right now, they're only 34.9%, as it's shown there. Total, the tracker has been following and normally identifies roughly 75% of the total actual, and has almost been spot on with 75%. Last year, identified on the tracker site was 300, and there were 400 ballots cast, which was 75%. And that almost mirrored percentage of how it actually ended up. So, but this year is the first year that there has been such a slow or a non-disclosure compared to all others.
Mm-hmm.
One of the comments by one of the 4 or 5 folks on this website said that due to the, if you want to call it the lockup, lockout, lock what have you, throw away the keys year, that there has not been that much discussion, only because the fact that MLB cannot, by agreement, have all these articles and the discussion. And a lot of these folks whose names do not appear are employed by MLB.com, who are the baseball writers. So they can't publish. Also, the fact that there tends to be major league city holdouts, which has not been in the past. Meaning Chicago 2 teams, New York 2 teams, LA 2 teams, so forth. Those cities tend not to hold out on this. They tend to jump right out there. So apparently you'd have to go down and see on the column, I guess it's AG column, where the link is where they read all the stuff. It's social media primarily, and not the big CID papers of the New York, Chicago, LA, and so forth. And so them being absent and the MLB guys being absent from vocalizing or just disclosing their ballots, even though all the ballots have been sent in. So you'd almost have to look last year of where these folks voted by comparing the 2021, where the source of this information for each, for the Bonds and the Clemens and so forth. And you'll see that Bonds and Clemens did not get very favorable from the MLB group, nor the big city paper group. So even though, you know, as Jim said, you know, once these non-disclosure, you know, are counted, because they had to have them turned in by now, the percentage won't change that much, because you're not going to gain that much unless somebody really was anti-Bonds and Clemens from the group that we don't see. But if you're expecting the 12 or 13 baseball writers who belong to, quote, as they call them, the elite group, they're following on Bonds and Clemens and so forth has been kind of hard cast over the years, and they're unlikely to change. So the percentage won't change. Also, the fact that you'll note that the amount of red this year is kind of up compared to prior years. If you look up and down. Normally what happens is that after a successful ballot and for a couple of years, there's lots of green and not that much red. This year, for some strange reason, there's lots of red as compared to other years. You just count the red cells as a percentage is all I was doing. And you see that, so somehow, I don't know, folks got turned off by saying, I voted for this dude and he didn't make it, I'm not voting for him again. But yet you look at Dom Amore from the Hartford Courant, you see that he had, his ballot contained 10 items, but one, Omar Vizquel, he didn't vote for him. But he voted for a first timer, and I forget who it was he voted.
It was Ortiz. It was Ortiz.
Ortiz? Yeah.
Okay, so he switched that one vote. Okay.
He swapped out Ortiz for the Vizquel.
I can see that.
Otherwise,
I mean,
he kept his ballot the same.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And to that point, there's an interesting little column, which I've never paid attention to before. But if someone voted for a 10-person ballot, filled out his ballot completely, if there was no limit on the number of people you could vote for, who else would you have voted for in addition to the 10 you chose? And they have that information here, I guess, based on querying the writers who made their ballots public, asking them the question. And you see Billy Wagner's name show up a lot there. I think you see Jeff Kent show up there. You see, Sheffield show up there. It's interesting to scan down that list and see who these writers would have voted for if there had been extra spaces or no limit on the number of people you could vote for. That's an interesting point about whose ballots you're not seeing here in terms of categories of baseball writers, baseball coverage, baseball media. I hadn't noticed that, but you're right. A lot of these are social media writers or identify as social media.
Right. If you look at the bottom, you'll see on the thing of the right, if you just scroll left all the way.
Whoops. Hang on.
Yeah, right here of the eligible, some information on the notes of whose ballots turned or said that they were going to vote, but they were not eligible to vote, so they had to scratch them from this list. And it's they've identified those who they're not going to vote there this year, but they voted in prior years, and some folks who had, I guess, no longer eligible, but had they been eligible, they would have voted. And then they identified this group of first-time balloteers who did not reveal their ballots, but their names were identified. I don't know how they come up with all these names, but yes.
Yeah, I guess they must.
Ornstraw, Levine, and Spire.
Yeah, I guess they must know who the new eligibles are, and they know that they haven't seen their ballots yet because they're not listed up.
Which tells me that this group is fed by an insider baseball writers, voters.
Yeah.
Paid the dues and can provide that info.
Yep. This is interesting. Ben Lindbergh, whose stuff I read on Fangraphs, I didn't realize he had publicly abstained. I guess I missed that. I wonder what his thinking was, why he abstained. Interesting. So yeah, this is, like I said, this is a fascinating thing to look at, and you can get lost in looking at these numbers real quick and trying to project trends and seeing how things compare year to year, as Chuck was talking about. And one other quick note I would point out, which I think is of no surprise to anybody here, the number of votes that Omar Vizquel has lost in the last year. He is definitely going in the wrong direction. Currently sitting at 8.8% on the named ballots, lost 37 votes so far, a net loss of 37, gained 0. So of the unrevealed ballots, if that trend continues, one has to wonder if he's going to drop off the ballot this year after being one who was thought of as maybe he gets in by his 10th year. Some people were speculating that he could be strong enough. He was showing pretty strong numbers, but then the allegations and the accusations that have come out against him have been pretty damning and are reflected here in this loss of support, I think. Any other questions or comments about this?
Yeah. I'm skeptical about the writers. It seemed that back in the day, baseball was covered much more in newspapers, which are hardly, they're not featured. The major newspapers are not covering their teams. It used to be you had a lot of hometown writers. And true, I grew up in the metropolitan New York area where we had 3 major league teams, and there was press all the time. So you got to know the players inside and out, the statistics and all the rest of it. So it makes me a little bit skeptical that these writers, in my opinion, they don't seem to know these players that well. And I could be wrong. I mean, the numbers are out there. If it's just by numbers, or what they're producing, then the steroids and the HGH stuff would not be a factor in, I mean, if you look at Bond's numbers or Clemens' numbers, or even A-Rod, these people produced incredible numbers. So anyway, I'm wondering who these writers are. And it's true that I'm not reading that much baseball compared to when I was younger. So I'm just curious if anybody else has an opinion about the quality of the baseball writers now.
Well, I can give you a hint. If you look at 2012, don't flip over because you could go all nuts. How many SABR members were Baseball Writers Association? Now jump over to the current year and go down the SABR directory and see how many are SABR members. And you'll see it's greatly reduced. This tells me, even with all the analytics and number crunching and SABR that they profess, they still don't have baseball writers out there anymore. So it's all Twitter. It is all, YouTube, MLB.com, ESPN.com, all of these guys there that write with no team identity, as Jeff said. There's no, if they met the dude on the street, they wouldn't know who the hell that they were. We grew up, if we saw them on the street, we'd go ape because we know what they look like. Now these guys wouldn't know. And so, the kinds of writers in the Baseball Writers Association. And if you look at the membership, I don't have my sheet here right now, but we used to have going close to 700 voting members who would vote, and you'd be 600 and some odd ballots. And last year was something like 400 ballots with out of a membership of 500 or 4,990 or something that were sent out. So there is like a 15% never return their ballots.
Yeah, which I guess that one is even more troubling to me than those who return a blank ballot. It's, you don't even return a ballot at all. It's like, why are you continuing to be considered an eligible voter? I mean, you could still be eligible for it, but why are you being issued a ballot if you're just not returning it? That seems like to me, I don't know, is that dereliction of duty? I'm not sure, but that doesn't sit well with me. I can sort of understand the blank ballot if you're protesting or whatever, but not even return it. That's harder to stomach in my mind.
It's a telltale sign. It's a tell that, to me, I mean, these people don't have the competencies. They don't have the background. They're not comfortable casting a ballot because they don't know the players. They don't have the facts at their fingertips. I mean, that's my hunch.
If true, then you have to wonder how they got access or how they became members of the Baseball Writers Association of America.
Yeah.
They don't even know the players now. It's like, okay, baseball writer who doesn't know baseball player. I don't know. That's a difficult thing to accept. If your hunch is true, Jeff, yeah. Any other thoughts or comments about this?
Yeah, I'm excited. My favorite player, Gil Hodges, made the veterans ballot and he got into the Hall of Fame. I was excited about that.
Yeah,
That's
there was. Yeah, last month when we met, talking about the Veterans Committee decisions, it was going to be interesting to see how they panned out. And sure enough, we had Buck made it, of course, which was great.
Yeah,
thrilled about that, and that was long overdue in my mind. But better late than never. Minnie Minoso made it. I was thrilled about that. Long overdue, long overdue, in my estimation. Gil Hodges. I mean, there are fewer cases of celebrity cause, shall we say, for someone making the Hall of Fame than Gil Hodges. I mean, he's someone that a lot of people have had an incredibly hard time believing wasn't already in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Considering the era in which he played, his statistics, the team he played for, all sorts of stuff. And then, of course, a managerial career cut far too short. The 69 Miracle Mets. So.
And he was in his 40s when he died.
Yeah.
47.
Yeah, he was not old at all.
Yeah. One other kind of somewhat irrelevant comment is players during World War I and World War II, most of them were served in the military, some with distinction. And so a lot of those players lost years.
Yep.
And were, American heroes. And I think it took away their numbers. And anyway, I appreciated that aspect of those guys.
Yeah, and I mean it's a impressive list. It's an impressive all-time list of the number of Hall of Famers who served in the military either during World War I, World War II, even Korea, during the Korean War period, if not in Korea proper, who lost quality years, lost some of their peak years to military service. And the what if is always fascinating to think about what those guys could have done if instead of serving their country, they continued to play baseball professionally. What would they have achieved in terms of their total career numbers, and what would the statistics look like across the game as a result?
Like Teddy Ballgame.
Yeah, I even think of like Willie Mays. And Hank Greenberg. It's like, wow. Any other thoughts or comments? Like I said, this is a fascinating thing, and I know I'm not the only one in attendance here who can easily get lost in looking at this and analyzing it and comparing it to years past and so forth. But it's an impressive piece of work. These guys do some great stuff, and it must have been a real pain in the keister to get this template set the first time they actually tried to make it this robust, but then to maintain it year to year after that, maybe a little bit easier, maybe.
I was gonna say, once it's set up, it's probably pretty easy, but setting it up has got to be the.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine. Cannot imagine. All right, I want to get to a little bit of chapter business before turning over the remaining time to Mr. Putnam for his presentation. Couple of things to draw you all's attention to. Reminder for those who were in attendance last month at the in-person meeting, the December meeting, we decided not to have a February monthly meeting, either in person or Zoom. We're just not going to have our first Wednesday meeting because the following Saturday, I believe the Wednesday is the 2nd, February 2nd, Groundhog Day. We will have no regular monthly meeting that day. Instead, we'll have a February meeting the following Saturday as SABR Day in America. And we're going to do that in person. A place to be determined, but myself and Kent are going to go check out the private meeting room they have at Glory Days there on Northeast Capitol Circle and see if that fits the bill for an in-person meeting where we can have AV presentation more easily. Our private meeting room there at Tally Fish House is great. I like it a lot, but it's not conducive to tech-heavy presentations. There's no monitor, no TV, that sort of thing. So it becomes a little bit trickier to make that work for that kind of presentation. So we're going to see if Glory Days can fit the bill. And once we make that determination, I'll put out more information about the meeting, which we'll have as our special guest host, our special guest presenter, Josh Weaver, who is a Buck O'Neill fanatic. And I cannot emphasize the word fanatic enough. The man is obsessed with all things Buck O'Neill. He has an amazing collection of Buck O'Neill memorabilia, some of which is on display at the Carabel History Museum in Carabel, which is Buck's hometown, where he was born and raised, spent about the first 5-6 years of his life there. There's a section in that tiny little museum, which is very quaint, very cute, and kind of a neat overview of the history of Carabel, dedicated specifically to Buck. And almost all the material in that section is Josh's stuff, and that's just a sample of what he has. So he'll be joining us for SABR Day to talk about Buck and talk about his interest in Buck O'Neill, what got him started, and we can all revel in the glow of Buck having been elected to the Hall of Fame back last month as part of that. And it'll be a nice time just to kind of hang out, shoot the bull, and so forth. And maybe by then we'll have something to react to in terms of labor negotiations, and we'll see what the proposals are coming from both sides to the other side. See how all that shakes out. That should make for some real exciting stuff. We'll also have some other means of entertainment there. I think I might see about getting Rick to do his annual trivia contest, which we haven't done in a couple of years because we haven't had Sabre Day since 2019. So this will be nice. This will be new. This will be interesting. But we shall see what we can come up with. But yes, that'll be February 5th. So no regular February meeting. And then a couple of other dates just to remind you all about for later in the year. The Jerry Malloy Conference, the Negro Leagues Research Committee, they are meeting hopefully June 2nd through June 4th in Birmingham, Alabama. It's the same location they had set up for a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, for what promises to be a great meeting. Different dates though, earlier in the year. And then Sabre 50 is going to be in August 17th through the 21st in Baltimore. Again, same location, but different dates than what was originally scheduled back before the pandemic.
Give me those dates again, Matt.
Yeah. Jerry Malloy, Negro Leagues Research Committee Conference.
I got that one. It's
Okay.
the Sabre 50.
Sabre one, August 17th through the 21st.
August?
Yep, August. And it'll be the Red Sox in town.
Okay, and again, the dates in August.
17th through the 21st.
17, 21. Got it.
Yeah. And I think there are a number of us who are interested in attending Sabre 50 if we can make it, if it comes to pass, myself included. Camden Yards, beautiful ballpark, great ballpark, great setting. And the Hyatt Regency, Hyatt Inner Harbor, I can't remember the exact name of the hotel, but I believe it's a Hyatt property, is right near Camden Yards there in the Inner Harbor, I believe. So very convenient, lots to see, National Aquarium, et cetera, et cetera.
Boo Powell Barbecue.
There you go, Boo Powell's Barbecue out there. Is it right field? Right along, is that Utah? Is that Utah Street there? No, but it's where the what the heck, the rail yard, the Western, no, not Western, that's San Diego, the rail yard building that they turned into the Orioles offices there. It's right set up over there. So yeah, it's a cool ballpark. I've been there twice. It's been many years now since I was there last, but it's beautiful. Lots of fun. Any questions about any of those dates or any of those events?
The only comment that I have, Matt,
Mhm.
is that if you guys get an email from me to invite you all at my expense for Sabre Day at the Governor's Club, that's because I was successful. I don't know if you can read
I see
that.
Powerball. I see Powerball.
It's only worth 600 mil. That's all.
Oh, that's all. Okay.
So I can afford to
was gonna-
treat you all, folks.
Oh, that's very kind of you. I'm surprised you'd still take our calls.
His secretary will have it call us back.
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna get past the gatekeeper on that one. All right, good deal. Well, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and cue up Kent's presentation here. And we will go ahead and turn the floor over to him for what I think is going to be a pretty cool first-person account of that very famous, at least locally famous, exhibition game between the New York Yankees and FSU back on April 5th, 1978. Let me share screen here. All right, you should be able to see the title page to the slide deck there, hopefully. Everything looked good there.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, cool. Sir,
All right.
you cue me when to change the slide.
I will do that. All right. So just a tiny bit of backstory about this presentation. I was really looking through a box of slides, old Kodachrome, for something else when I ran across my box of slides from this game, which I obviously was taken in April of 1978. And I definitely had some memories of attending the game, and I had some pretty vague memories about most of the images that I took. But when I reviewed them, just kind of holding up to the light. I thought, well, this is something that needs to be shared. So that's how this came to be. And one of the unanswered questions is how exactly I got a great seat right behind home plate. And I really don't know how I got that ticket, but I did. And so that we'll see some shots through the backstop screen, of course, but pretty good vantage point. I grabbed my my old Pentax camera and a roll of Kodachrome, 36 shots, and off I went. So let's go to the next slide, Matt. This page that's here on the left is just a page from the FSU Baseball Handbook from that year. So it was actually printed, prior to the season, and was going to be a highlight of. This wasn't a impromptu thing. This had been planned, and it explains that the Yankees had would break spring training, and head for Dallas, where they would open the season against the Rangers, but they managed to arrange a stop in Tallahassee for this game. And right from the beginning, it's been pretty clear that one of the driving forces behind this arrangement was indeed then a coach for the Yankees, former Seminole, Dick Howser. All right, let's go to the next page. Next slide, I'm sorry. And this is the opposite page to the one we just looked at. And you can see that the handbook featured 4 high-profile Yankees, including manager Billy Martin and Coach Howser. And kind of cut off here at the bottom, we have Thurman Munson and, of course, Mr. October himself, Reggie. Next slide, please. And this is another page from the yearbook, or the handbook rather, and just I was intrigued by some artists' interpretation of Reggie, hopefully striking out, but anyway, there he is, and you can see it's a little truncated there, but you can see some of the FSU schedule for the season, and I'll talk at the end of the talk. I'll talk about speak on what happened to the Yankees and to the Seminoles as the season progressed after this game. All right, next slide. So here we are, and we're in pregame warm-ups. And again, you can see the screen, but manager Martin there with Yogi early on, exchanging some thoughts on the day's game, and Billy Martin has a fishing pole in his hand, and we'll, as we go on, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, next slide. And here are the head men for the 2 teams, Billy and Martin, of course, on the right, and the head coach of the Noles at that point was number 6, Woody Woodward, former big leaguer himself. And it was interesting. I noticed I found a roster for the Seminoles for 1978, and one of the assistant coaches was good old number 11, Mike Martin Sr. Just getting started. All right, next slide. Now in this slide, you can tell the groundskeepers are getting the field ready, and Coach Woodward is talking to one of the Yankees, and his face is obscured in this shot, so I'll leave it for another slide to speculate on as to who this is. All right, next slide. And this is just a shot from my seat looking over toward the down the first baseline, just to kind of give you an idea of what it was like down on the field before the game, with a lot of press and players mingling, and of course a sellout crowd. All the bleacher seats, I believe, were pretty much taken. All right, next slide. Now here's another shot of the two guys talking on the third baseline. I guess it was obviously something that was really interesting to me. I think that's Ron Guidry, and if anybody has a better idea, let me know. But I'm pretty sure that's who that is talking to Woody. All right, and Mr. Guidry had a real good year. We'll talk some more about that too. Next slide. And I just love this shot. You know, somebody hit a pop fly, and guys just keep talking, or doing whatever they're doing, but they're also making sure they don't catch one on the top of the head. So I was got a kick out of that one. All right, next slide. And here the Yankees are starting to warm up a little bit, taking a little infield. Number 10 back there is a first baseman for the Yankees, Chris Chambliss. And number 12 down here, way over on the right, is an outfielder by the name of Jim Spencer. And interesting, Dick Hauser's frat house welcomed him back, if you note the sign above the fence there. All right, next slide. Now, okay, this is still obviously infield. Billy Martin was number 1, and there he is with his back to us. And number 41, who's throwing the ball around, is the catcher for the day, Cliff Johnson. And one of the things that was interesting when I went back and looked at the slides is nowhere in here is any sign of Thurman Munson. He didn't play, and I don't remember seeing him, and I didn't find him in any of these photographs. So I'm kind of guessing he had an excused absence. As you'll see when we look at the box score. Otherwise, the Yankee team that took the field in the first inning was basically the starting lineup, but not behind the plate. Okay, next slide. Just some more famous people here. We got Yogi there, just to the really, he's kind of dead center. And number 20 with his back to us is Bucky Dent. Not exactly sure who some of these other people are. Next slide. And at some point, Billy came back to talk to somebody who was sitting down in front of me, and I was able to get this pretty nice little close-up of him.
Well,
being his usual
Ken,
animated self, shall we say.
Ken, could you go back one slide?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that Reggie that's just to the right of the pole?
Right here.
You know, I think it's Chambliss.
I
No.
think that's-
The next one over, the next one back beyond
That's
him.
Reggie there. That's
Reggie there, yeah.
That's Reggie.
That's
I think
right.
that's 44 there, and this is Chris Chambliss here.
Yeah, that's Chambliss. That's right.
And maybe Willie Randolph back there. I'm not sure.
Good crowd though.
Oh yeah, it was a sellout. Solid sellout, I think. Okay, let's go back to Billy Martin. We'll talk some more about the rest of his season.
Already drunk there.
It's possible. So next slide. There's Reggie catching up with, I assume that's the press or maybe some boosters. I don't know. Is this the guy in the suit? Is that the university president maybe?
Which suit here?
Yeah, the blue suit.
Kind of looks like Stan Marshall, but he looks too old to be Stan Marshall there, because
in 78.
Still wouldn't have been that old.
Yeah. Okay, I don't really know who it is.
Yeah. And Bernie Slager would have been president at this point, I think.
Yeah, that's probably right. Right. Okay. Next slide. Again, just another crowd shot, although clearly we've got Reggie and Chambliss.
Yep.
Right there. All right, next slide. Before I talk about this, I meant to mention this earlier, but I will, when I was researching this, I found a reference in an online column that was actually written several years ago, but I learned that before the game, the Yankees had brunch at the governor's mansion, and Governor Askew apparently was a baseball fan and thrilled to pieces to have all those famous faces there in the governor's mansion with him. And according to the reporter, a good time was had. Pregame ceremony. I think I recognize Gene Deckerhoff there in his cool leisure suit. And
a few pounds lighter.
Yeah, a few pounds lighter. Yes. And so I won't try to go through here. Obviously, Woody Woodward is here. I don't know if Mike Martin, is that Mike?
That's my guess. That's 11 right
Yeah.
there. And I was wondering, is that Chip Baker, or had Chip not yet joined the staff?
You know, you want to give me a second? Let me look at my notes. You know what his number is? This is numerical.
He wore 9. I can't remember what number he wore.
No, he's not on here. Anyway, and note the golf bag. We're going to see that get awarded here in a minute. All right. Next slide. And there's the golf bag, and it's Dick Hauser. It actually was. If you go back on the slide before this, you can see it says right there. If you can, it's hard to read, but it does say Dick Hauser right there. All right, back to the next slide, and there's just the guys, the Yankees flirting with the pretty girls, you know, and nothing changes in that regard. All right, next slide.
Except somehow it looks like Yogi somehow missed that part. He's looking away.
Yeah. And you can see Billy Martin got that fishing pole awarded to him formally there, and you can just barely make it out there. So those were the two gifts to Yankees. All right. Next slide. Just another picture of the Yankees getting ready to play ball, being introduced. Looking at the field, was the big screen up there at that time? Anybody know?
I obviously I wasn't here in 78, but I don't think so. I think they dedicated the scoreboard in the mid 80s. I think either the Yankees or the Royals came back to do that.
Okay.
I think that's that old scoreboard that sat out in left center. Was, yeah, I think that was 85, I think.
So is that the site of the current stadium?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Just looks dry and like nothing there. So that's.
Yeah, it's definitely a different era when groundskeeping was handled in a different manner.
Yep.
So,
Yep. All right. Next slide, please. This was basically looking over to my left as I was sitting facing the field, and you can see that obviously the press box there, and they had set up the overflow for the cameras and the writers.
So
All right.
So the press
Go ahead.
box in 78 or in this era, the press box for what was, I guess, Seminole Field, probably wasn't Dick Howser Stadium yet. Was-
Yeah, that's right.
The line was on the third base side, off center.
No, I think this was the same place. I just think it was just, I mean, it just looks like a little metal box, you know?
It's like
Yeah.
a high school bot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an overgrown high school field. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, let's go on. There were some VIPs. We have the boss.
Yep.
Next slide. Right behind me, this guy was calling the game, Mel Allen. Next slide. Way down there. Guy who had a bunch of home runs in pinstripes, Mr. Maris.
He's hawking Budweiser there.
Yeah.
Probably.
I think by that point. Although-
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
That was one of the stories in the mentions in this newspaper story was Maris and his beer distributorship down in Gainesville.
Yeah.
All right, next slide.
Thank you, Augie Bush.
Yeah. So Chip Baker provided me with this, the lineup cards. So we have the lineup cards, and at the end, I'll show you the box score. But unfortunately, I made some inquiries and I could not find a copy of a score sheet. You know, but the paper had a pretty good summary of how the game went. So, and as I said earlier, the Yankees really had their everyday lineup. They had Chambliss, Randolph, Dent, and Nettles around the infield, and Roy White, Mickey Rivers, and Reggie in the outfield.
Yeah, that's the line. That's the
So, oh yeah, and
lineup I grew up with.
Pinella is in the lineup too. That's right.
Well, him and White were the left fielders.
Oh, I see. Roy White was the DH for this day.
Yeah.
And probably, well, two guys who, in reading about this, were standouts for the Seminoles. Brooks Carey, you can see the starting pitcher was 7-0 at that time. And apparently he pitched quite recently before this. So he only pitched a couple innings, but he did great. And he even got a thumbs up from Reggie in the post-game interview. Don Milner, I believe, was a pretty steady hitter for the Seminoles during his career. And Blaine McDonald, the catcher batting fifth for the Noles, actually was an All-American. And I didn't remember that, but I guess he had a good career in college, at least. Okay. Any questions about the lineups before I go on? All right, let's go to the next slide, Matt. So we're gonna play some ball, and I will. You know, it's been a long time ago, so we can recognize some of these guys, and I know kind of how the game progressed, but I can't really match up and say, you know, here's somebody driving in a run or something like that. So these are just some scenes of the ball game. Here's Reggie coming to the plate, digging in. And next slide, we'll get to see Reggie taking a cut. I don't even know if he made contact, you know. But
The helmet's
pretty
still on,
classic swing
so he
there.
probably did.
Could be.
That's a view that brings back a lot of memories to me, is behind home plate, seeing that 78 team. So
Yeah, great. All right, so next slide.
Nettles.
9 is Nettles. Greg Nettles getting his cut. So it's a left-hander on the mound, and I think this is still Brooks Carey pitching for the Seminoles. All right, next slide. Anybody want to tell me who that is?
Mickey
Pretty sure I
Rivers.
know. Mickey Rivers, yeah.
You can tell by the walk, even in a still photo.
Yeah, he's just got that certain casual kind of,
Yeah.
taking it easy. All right, next slide. I kind of think this is the way the mound is empty, that I don't know, maybe the pitcher covered first, or it's pitching change or something. I don't know. Anyway,
Oh, the
next
umpire,
slide. Yeah, go ahead.
is the umpire making a call? Or you're making
It kind of looks
timeout?
like it, isn't it? Or
Or
a
he's-
timeout, maybe
timeout.
I
timeout.
think timeout. I think the runner at second's calling for time.
Yeah,
Because
it doesn't look
Bucky
right.
has the ball.
Yeah. And Randolph's over there behind him, backing him up.
So the pitcher's backing up wherever the play is, wherever he needs
Yeah.
to. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, he might have been over here behind third. maybe.
yeah.
So, and it looks like, am I seeing in the outfield there is that Reggie and Roy White, maybe?
Roy
That's
White was
probably
DH.
Rivers and Reggie.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's right.
Rivers. Okay, yeah, because White was DH, that's right, yeah. Okay.
Although there were some changes, obviously some substitutions, and we'll look at the box score on that. And it's hard for me to tell you what inning this was. Although, and I comment on this later, you can tell from the shadow of the light post that the afternoon's getting on,
Mhm.
Earlier scenes, we didn't have those kind of shadows. All right,
just-
next slide.
I just like seeing the vegetation beyond the fence. There.
Trees.
And the play at the plate. I have no idea if the guy was out or safe.
Well, I'd say if Johnson has the ball, he's probably very out.
Out, right? And if he doesn't have the ball, I think it's a pretty good chance he was safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the umpire looks like it's right there. So
Yeah, I can't tell. I'm not sure if he has the ball or not, but yeah.
I mean the umpire's definitely staring too. That's got to be the ball watching the foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's Raleigh Eastwick right there, who started for the Yankees.
Probably. Yeah.
This is still pretty early in the game.
Pretty early, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next slide. And this sure looks like Chris Chambliss to me.
Yeah.
And I know it from looking at the box score, he hit a long ball, so very likely that's him after rounding the bases.
Mhm.
All right, next slide. Mr. Dent,
Barnaby's. The recently
Uh,
closed.
the Brown Derby.
Yeah.
All right, next slide. And this time the runner is safe. We know that.
The Seminoles are doing okay.
Yeah, they did all right. Final score was 10-5 for the Yankees. All right, next slide. Mr. Nettles and Mr. Dent.
Yep.
I believe. Next slide.
Uh-huh.
Another shot of Reggie.
Yeah, so you caught the baseball right there, it looks like.
There it is, yeah.
Yeah. Cool shot.
Next slide. Yankees taking the field after their times of bat. And I did, the slides were numbered, and so these are they should be in chronological order. Sometimes there's something that I think, well, that doesn't seem quite right, but they should be in chronological order. All right, next slide.
I was gonna say, maybe that was Reggie's he was the last at bat for that half inning, and it looks like someone's bringing him his gear. I can't tell.
Yeah,
That was my impression when I saw that too. So
Yeah, it's like Reggie had an unproductive out.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, he didn't contact that last pitch we just saw.
yeah, he didn't look like he had a great swing there. All right, so a lefty throwing to a right-handed batter for the Knowles, and after about the 10th time of looking at this photograph, I thought, there's something really unusual about this, and that is the material of the bat being swung by a
Oh,
Seminole.
Yeah, wood. There you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's not going to be the
yeah,
thing.
And it's thick wood too. I mean, you could.
yeah.
He's choking up. He's
Yeah. May not have been the one he would have chosen if he had a full array. Anyway, thought that was kind of fun. See a wooden bat.
Yeah.
All right. Next slide. And again, just another FSU batter. And then you can really see the shadows now,
Yeah.
all the way across,
And
including out in the outfield.
who would you guess is pitching there?
I don't know. Why don't we look at the box score in a minute, and we'll be, maybe we can make a better guess.
maybe at the end of the game.
Yeah, this is the all right. So this is the last slide. So let's look at the box score, Matt. Next slide.
And without looking at the box score, I got my guess on that guy.
Okay. Ah. Well, they only used 3 pitchers.
Yep.
So Holtzman was the lefty. Okay, and Goose.
Yeah.
Goose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Struck
Struck
out
out
5.
Yeah. 2 innings, 6 batters and 5 strikeouts, 6 outs anyway.
Eastwood got knocked around.
He did. Yeah. So the way the game, as I said, Brooks Carey shut down the Yankees for, I think he pitched 2 innings.
Mhm.
Yeah. Did give up a couple of hits, but no runs. And then Seminoles got a run in the bottom of the 3rd, but the Yankees got 3 in the top of the 4th. Seminoles get 3 in the bottom of the 4th and lead at that point 4-3. But then the Noles get only 1 more run the rest of the afternoon when the Yankees just chipped away, getting, at least 1 run in every at bat. So, and interestingly, the guy who really set the pace for the Yankees on offense was Chris Chambliss, 4 for 4, 3 runs batted in.
It didn't look like Randolph there in those photos with the relievers. I see Fred Stanley came in for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul Blair came in for Piniella. Okay.
Mhm. And Jim Spencer got at least 1 at bat there.
Yes, he did.
After
And it's
Chambliss
also
had his day.
interesting over on the FSU side, the freshman Mike Fuentes got in at the end of the game, and he was a Golden Spikes winner later, wasn't he?
He was, yep, in 81. I think 80, 81. But yeah, he's the biggest name in that FSU lineup. In terms
That's my recollection. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because when I looked at the lineup, I was like, wow, I thought Fuentes played about that same time, and he did, but he was only a freshman, as you said.
Yeah. So pretty interesting afternoon. Weather was great, as I remember, and I sure had a good time. So let's go to the next slide, Matt. I wanted to talk about what I looked at to research this. There were 2 articles by Bob Cohn in the Democrat the next day. One was just a report of the game, and then the other was a just kind of a color piece about all the celebrities and all that. Chip Baker gave me the copy of the lineup card. I found a copy of the 78 Baseball Handbook online. And I wanted to especially draw your attention to this next one, Garnet and Old, paying tribute to Dick Hauser. I don't know if any of you had the pleasure of knowing Jim Jonas. He was my boss at the court for a couple of years, and a huge booster all his life, all his adult life. And he was the guy who wrote about the breakfast at the governor's mansion. And he also knew Dick Hauser going back to when Dick was a freshman at FSU. And so it's a wonderful piece about him, and this website down here below it is a link to that story if any of you are interested in it. If you can't get that now, just send me an email and I'll be glad to send it to you. As for the Yankees, I just read about their season and got a roster off of Wikipedia, and same for the Knowles, except I use knowlefan.org and of course my own photographs. So before quitting, I wanted to talk about what happened to these teams after this particular afternoon. The Seminoles finished the season 44-18. They finished in third place in the Metro Conference in the regular season with a conference record of 9-4. They lost the conference championship game to Memphis State 10-9. They were accepted for the NCAA tournament, invited down to a regional in Miami, went 0-2 and went home. As for the Yankees, I know a lot of you know about this, but they were floundering mid-season. Manager Martin made some comments that weren't well considered and was fired. Dick Hauser managed for one game, and then Bob Lemon came in and managed the rest of the season. At one point, the Yankees trailed the Red Sox by 14 games, but were able to catch them. The regular season ended in a tie with both teams with 99 wins. They played a playoff game, and that puny little shortstop we saw hit a home run that will live in infamy. So there's that. And then I wanted to wrap up by, mentioning, two follow-up tragedies that I'm sure we all know about. One being the death of Thurman Munson 16 months later in a plane crash. And then, of course, in 1987, Dick Hauser, who was then the manager of the Royals, died of a brain tumor. So some fun and some sadness too.
Well, just as a footnote, once you started, I went off and I got my copy of The Bronx Zoo, which is Sparky Lyles. He didn't go to Tallahassee. In his day-by-day account, him and Catfish, and probably Munson as well, they went to Tuscaloosa.
Really?
And on April 7th, played the University of Alabama. Catfish faced 21 batters, retired 21 batters.
Wow.
That's the entry. Then.
So that was in 78?
Yep.
And 2 days later.
2 days later.
So, and the rest of the Yankee team went from Tallahassee to Tuscaloosa?
Yep.
Yeah, interesting. I did not know about that.
Huh.
Then Lyle, after noting Catfish's 21 batters, I came in and blew the perfect game. Everybody was razzing me, perfect game, and you have to come in and blow it. Cy Young winner my ass. Tomorrow the season starts.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Putnam about his presentation?
That was great.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah, that was wonderful. I've been looking forward to this one. I had a lot of fun looking at these photos while I was building the PowerPoint. I mean, it's just really incredible to think, okay, there's Billy Martin just the other side of the backstop. There's there's Reggie,
There's Maris
in the game.
Mel Allen.
Right. Yeah, Mel Allen. Was Phil Rizzuto there too? Wouldn't he have been doing radio or maybe TV?
I don't think he was there. Yeah. I started it. I don't think I said this, but one of the things I did was looked at the New York Times archives, and on April the 6th, there was not a word about this game.
I was going to say, growing up in New Jersey, there would probably be about 2 or 3 games that PIX would show from spring training. That was it.
Yeah.
So there really didn't send many, Rizzuto probably never went down.
Mhm.
I mean, that's unless him, went down to instruct for bunting probably early in the session. But I mean, that's,
Yeah.
there was very little on the radio of spring training back then, and
Yeah.
very, very little on TV.
Mm. Oh. Huh, interesting.
Thank you very much, Ken, for all your hard work.
Oh, thank you, Chuck.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
No, I really like those shots of the stadium, and just especially seeing the forest beyond the outfield wall, especially when you go there now.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some pretty impressive pine trees across the street from Dick Hauser. Even when I was going to school as a grad student, there were still some over there. And now,
Yeah.
it's really cool to see the old ballpark shots. I had no concept of what that ballpark looked like in the late 70s until I saw these slides. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's like, this is a cool game. They didn't play this over at Leon, did they? I mean, geez.
That was high school style. Some of that.
Yeah.
Totally.
The press box was something.
Judge Jonas has an incredible Seminole baseball collection, memorabilia, and he was in my baseball memories Ollie class a few years ago, and he brought in some of those treasures, baseball bats, and including the I guess you call it the brochure from Dick Hauser's funeral.
Oh,
He
wow.
attended. So he's a real source, and he's still around. He goes to the old coaches' lunches.
I'm sorry. Who are you talking about?
Jim Jonas, Judge Jonas.
Oh, Jim. Yeah, sure.
So
Do you think Judge Jonas would be interested in coming to talk to us sometime and maybe bringing some of that stuff?
I'm sure he would.
If he's willing to let us greasy pawed billions touch those things.
I'm sure. Bring Judge Wolf along, and
Yeah.
I can check with him, Matt. I know him very well.
If he'd be up for it, that'd be great. Yeah, I'm surprised that Jim didn't make it tonight. I thought he would have enjoyed this presentation, as would have Glenn. I'm sorry they missed it, but that's all right. They get enough Yankee glory. And Jim, you can text him afterwards and tell him how great it was and how sorry they should be for missing it. So. All right. Well, thank you very much again, Kent. That was great. That was really cool. All right, gentlemen, we have reached the magic time. It is almost 8:30. Any last comments or anything for the good of the order before we say goodnight? Nothing? All right. Well, we'll go to sleep tonight with visions of Reggie Jackson dancing in our heads here.
up to you to settle the lockout.
Yeah. There you go. All right, folks. Well, hearing
If
nothing,
you can.
we'll go ahead and call it a day. Be looking for information about Sabre Day in America on February 5th. Email will be coming out soon as Kent and I do our review of the Glory Days option. And yeah, looking forward to that as well. And then, of course, we'll be in person, which will be nice. All right, folks. Once again, thanks for attending. Good to see you all. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you all next month.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
You bet. Bye-bye.